All right, excellent. So I am Wesley Ramey. I go by West. I currently work as a security analyst. I do a wide array of different things from like digital forensics. So when you get really weird, scammy type of email that's got some weird file in it, I usually deconstruct it and figure out exactly what their mission objective is, what they're trying to do. If they're trying to steal password, a cookie, which is how your browser stays logged into a website over a long period of time, and various other things, kind of the resident locksmith at work as well. So if somebody's lost their keys, which in a facility it's over 100 years old, you're going to imagine they've probably lost a lot of keys over time. Chain of custody sometimes gets a little bit bent. Um, so I get calls for that. I regularly do something called pen testing, which is essentially looking for vulnerabilities in the system and finding pathways to remediate them, as well as a little bit of actual general IT support, all the way up to basically implementing policies and procedures to help safeguard the information that we're given. Because you think of any business, they usually have like your name, your address, your phone number, your email address, your password. They might have your social security number. They might have your birthday. They might have your purchase records. They might have various bits of information and detail about on you. So making sure in a business sense that you're properly securing that is a very, very important job to do throughout day to day. And with this today, the talk I would like to give would be key-to-alike and password-alike systems, examining the dangers of uniform security practices, which there's parallels between both of them. And as we go on here, just a little bit about me, which I've already went some of it. The other things is, I'm a big animal person, cats, dogs, usually volunteer twice a week to help out with a local charity called the ADL, which is the Animal Defense League, as well as, let me switch this over so I'm not actually kind of having my head kind of cocked to the side just a bit. All right. There we go. All right, excellent. And you can still see the screen just fine, right?
Yep.
All right, excellent. And other things, I love puzzles, riddles, folklore. That one thing I always actually found really interesting as a child, and always open to connect. So I put my LinkedIn into the chat there. At the end of the PowerPoint presentation, there is my email. If you need to reach out to me, feel free to ask any questions. If you ever run across something weird, you just want a second opinion, you just want to know, like, hey, does this kind of seem like a scam, or does it actually seem like I shouldn't click on this, or this kind of doesn't seem like it's, my friend I haven't talked to in 5 years, they're kind of acting funny. It may be a stolen account and they're just kind of trying to hijack it and scam whoever's on the contact list within that account, which you will see that on LinkedIn lately. There's a lot of scam and bots on that, which is really interesting subject to go down at a later date. But without further ado, let's go ahead and actually jump into it here and understand what key-to-like systems actually mean. So a key-to-like system, the easiest way to actually understand it, I gave a pretty thorough description here with it. It's a key that's able to actually unlock multiple locks. So if you think about it in an organization, say it's got a campus, you've got multiple buildings like a college campus or corporate campus, you usually have a tiered key system. So you have like just one key that opens one door, what another key that's above that's a department key that opens all the keys in the department. You have the what they call the grandmaster key that opens everything on campus, and then you usually have one key that lets you change the locks throughout campus, and that one's usually only through the locksmith or whatever the security or police department is for that organization. And while this is convenient, it does pose a security risk because once you've compromised one of the higher level keys, you've compromised the security throughout the entire organization. So the security kind of becomes null and void at that point if somebody's able to actually get that. A hidden danger with that one, though, is what we'll come up against next. So a fun fact about key-to-like systems, when it comes to manufacturing, there's a big kind of flaw with it. It's not necessarily a flaw in the sense of they didn't think ahead to think this way. It's just more logistically, it doesn't work out the best to try and do it the proper way. So fun fact is Did you know most commercial equipment use the same key across devices and merchants? And this includes heavy machinery such as like backhoes, bulldozers, everything like that. This also includes office furniture, so your filing cabinets, your fireproof safes, your desk, several other type of cabinetry that you usually see in like office supply stores. 90s model cars, they only made about 5 different keys per actually car. Toyota's was like that. Ford was like that. It wasn't specific to any manufacturer. There's a funny story when I was in college for my associate's degree, I had a 98 Toyota Tacoma, and I accidentally, really, really tired one day, not paying attention, walked up to the wrong car, inserted my key into it, and turned it. And as soon as I looked into the car after I opened the door, I went, "Oh my God, this is not my car." And I kind of just shut the door and locked it, looked around, nobody saw me, and just kind of walked away and go, "Please don't let somebody think I'm trying to steal someone's car." Um, so that was an interesting oh crap moment. And RVs are the same way, not necessarily the ignition keys, but the door keys for RVs are usually all keyed the same, and it's usually only 1 or 2 keys that are different between them, and that applies to all manufacturers. Safes, particularly most of the safes you're going to get in common areas like big box store, that sort of thing, all those usually have the same key, just reiterated amongst each other. Alarms, gates, and sometimes houses. The scary thing about houses is if you go to any of the big box stores and you find like a deadbolt set and you pick it up, you usually see a 5-digit number on the back of it. Go and find another one in the pile of same brand, pick it up again, you'll notice the same 5-digit number. What that is that's the bidding code for the key. So you'll have like 50 of the same one in the bin, and they all have the same key. So what happens when a contractor is building a subdivision and they need like 100 of those, and they just go down to Lowe's or Home Depot and buy them? Now all your neighbors in that neighborhood all have the same key until they eventually change it. And where there's a parallel between that and the digital world, a lot of people use the same password across multiple accounts. So your email account, your bank account, your credit card account, retirement account, your work accounts. Some people will use the same password or very similar password just so they don't have to actually use a different one between them. Statistical, kind of averages is about 50 to 60% of people will actually use the same or very similar password across multiple devices or companies rather. And where that gets in trouble is when you have a data breach in one of them and the password gets out there, just like the key to like system, now they have your email and they have your password. They just have to go around actually trying that at several different websites. And eventually they'll probably get into one of your accounts if it's all keyed the same, password the same. All right. And here I figured we could actually do the breakout rooms if that's okay, Ron. And sorry, go ahead.
I've got them all set up whenever you're ready, man.
All right, awesome. Some of the topics you could probably discuss with this one if you wanted to. What are some of the systems that you have that if you look around your office, your home, or anything that is critical or important to you, uh, what are some of the pieces of physical security that you have that might be vulnerable to this attack? And have you heard of any companies recently in the news, LinkedIn and Ticketmaster are some that's actually been very, very recent that have had their data breached, and that included usernames and passwords? And do you already have safety measures in place to kind of mitigate this risk and impact of these type of attacks, such as using a different password between them or changing the locks that's already on your house if you bought a brand new house in the past like 5 or 10 years and it hasn't been changed since it was built? um, and just basically anything else that might come to mind that would fall into this category.
Awesome, guys. I've got 1019. I've got the breakout room set up. Feel free to take a minute and introduce yourselves, and then we'll get everybody back in here in about 10 minutes and continue on the discussion.
Excellent. I can hear my pet scratching at the door.
And you should have the ability to join a breakout room, Wes, if you want. I mean,
Wes, you're muted still.
Okay, there we go. Back. Can you hear me?
yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Sorry, Pete, I didn't mean to just leave in the middle of your sentence. I just clicked the wrong button. It was a scary story from Pete, though. Yeah.
C'est bon.
No worries. But yeah, one thing I was just getting ready to say there as a recommendation was that for if you're running like a business, small to medium business, definitely be on the lookout of what are the common types of fraud and scams that they actually are doing against businesses. Like one thing would be just sending you regular or sending you random invoices, and some businesses, particularly in that cusp of where they're going from small to medium or medium to large, they may not have all the time in the world to vet every single invoice they get. They just go ahead and pay it, and then they go back later and look and go, I don't know who this company or person is. I have no idea who this is. Who is this? And there's a little that happens way more than you would think it would.
Mhm.
I'm sure Rodney's seen it working in the financial sector before.
Yeah.
Those have been terrible for my mom. So my dad passed away like a year and a half ago, and she's had to take over all the things. And it's like weekly, she's calling, she's like, I got a bill, I don't know what it is. They're saying it's gonna go to collections if I don't pay it. And I'm like, Mom, do you even have an account at Best Buy? Like, just ignore any of that. You're gonna get a bill from the company like you usually do. Just forget all their scare tactics and just delete. If you don't know what it is, delete it.
Yep. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, Rodney, correct me if I'm wrong on this one, but I think the legal sense for actually debt, they have to send you a physical piece of mail. They can't just justify it by email alone. It actually has to be, I don't think it has to be certified mail, but I think they do actually have to send you a physical piece of mail for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you'll hear all of them say, hey, we're not gonna text you, we're not gonna call you, right? And that's why, because they will send a physical piece of mail. Even then, you've got to be a little leery, right? I mean, I know most of you guys knew I went up to Put in Bay the weekend before Memorial Day weekend, and my card, somewhere along the lines, my bank card got skimmed. Thankfully, they didn't take it was like a $60 charge initially, and then there was an $80 charge on there. But I was getting texts from Navy Federal, which I'm usually a little skeptical about, right? I don't ever answer them. I just called Navy Federal, right? And sure enough, Navy Federal was like, yeah, that was us texting you. We just declined 2 more charges. Like, it started like rapid sequence declination of charges, right? And so thankfully they were aware of it, and they declined it all. But and I got the initial $80 back. But you got to just call the organizations yourself. That's the best thing to do, right? That's the best thing. And I agree with you, Laura. I think our elderly are definitely most susceptible. I think my mom went through all of that. Tim, with you recently losing your dad as well, I think you might want to talk to your mom and make sure she's aware of those things and stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, I saw that a ton when I worked at Best Buy. It broke my heart. And then kind of as like I wouldn't call it revenge, but I guess in that kind of same sentiment, I just started collecting the phone numbers and putting them online and being like, if anybody wants to call these people and mess with them, because you got a lot of free time, go right ahead. And now that has become a trend, so I am happy with that. But yeah, and to the sentiment of the payment card systems, there was one final slide at the very end where I go over a couple of countermeasures to kind of try and keep that from backfiring on you, because it's really easy just to go on eBay and buy those card skimmers for less than $100 and set them up and just, collect cards all day long. And thankfully, it's only the mag stripe part of it that is actually making you vulnerable. If you're doing tap, they can't really do that because of the way that has to be set up back end on the financial infrastructure, and it has to be registered with the bank, and they give you a token to actually do that. That is shifting cipher. So that whole part of it is not something they're able to crack yet. Yet being the keyword.
Wes, you're not sharing either, just so you're aware.
Oh yeah, that's one thing I was going to say. I'll go back to sharing here.
So you were right, Bob. It is more secure to do the tap.
Yeah, that
Is that
is.
compared to like the chip?
So the inserting of the chip into the bottom of it, that one I still don't actually trust entirely.
Okay.
So the chip is kind of in the same ballpark as the tap because the chip is just a small microchip on it, which you can see from the top. But how it's doing the tap is it's got a piece of wire running around the inside of the PVC. So the reader is pumping out an electrical signal, and as soon as it gets close to those wires, inductive loop, it's actually reading off of the chip. So if it's only reading off the chip when it's inserted into it, then you're fine. But the other thing about it is I'm pretty sure they can still kind of read the mag stripe off of that. So it might allow the payment to go through, but it might still actually steal the data in that way. And that's why I don't always trust that. I'll usually always go through a process of trying the tap. If that doesn't work, then I have a basically a very low budget amount credit card that I can actually use in a place I don't feel comfortable doing. So even if they do steal it, A, it's a credit card, it's insured better than a debit card. And two, it's got a very low amount. So even if I don't notice it in 24, 48 hours, they got virtually nothing. They got a couple $100. And that's really all they're getting out of it before it maxes out.
So craziness is when I was up there, right? On our way home from Put-in-Bay, I mean, obviously I used my credit card a couple of times at the restaurants or whatever, or my bank card at the restaurants and stuff, which I always handed to the waiter or whoever, right? And then on the way home, though, we stopped at a gas station in Mount Gilead, Ohio, and I tried to tap it, right, and it wasn't picking up. It wasn't picking up. It wasn't picking up. So I finally got, because I needed gas. I got frustrated and I shoved the chip up in there, right? And the next day is when we actually had those faulty chargers. So I have a suspicion. I called the gas station and said, hey, I don't know if you got a skimmer installed or whatever, but this is what happened, because I know they have been finding them in several gas pump skimmers and stuff, right?
Wes,
Yeah.
I have a question. What about Apple Pay, Google Pay? Is that similar to tapping in terms of security?
Yeah, that one's going to, and that one's being proxied by a organization, so they're actually holding some of the liability there when they're doing that. So they have a really good incentive for that to not actually become easily compromised. So that one works just like the tap because it's going from the tap through your cell phone to Google or Apple, and then it's going from that, which is tied to your payment system. So it's more or less not able to even see what your card is because Google or Apple is being the proxy in between you. And they're basically almost like a third account there, or a second account there is actually being transferred from it. So they're not able to actually see your actual information when you do that. So that would actually be another good one to do as well. And if you ever come across, like I never pay at the pump, I always go inside. And if I do have to insert it right there where the card reader is, like where you insert it, if you can grab that and pull up a little bit and you feel like, either a gap or like a lip of plastic that doesn't feel like it actually belongs there, just go ahead and actually just start lifting up. And if you feel like Velcro or tape or whatever, just pull it all the way up. I would probably look at the person and just go ahead and just start calling the cops, because chances are, not always, and I can't say this with complete certainty because there's no way to be completely certain, a lot of times when that's done by somebody that either works at the gas station or they might even own the gas station. So it's not necessarily someone going in there waiting for someone's back turned and then slapping it on there real quick. Whereas you probably could pull that off maybe 1 out of 3, 1 out of 4 times, kind of like Mission Impossible, slap it on there real quick while your friend's distracting them and then run. You still have to come back and get the stuff. There's ways to make it wireless where you can dump the contents off of it via Bluetooth or short range Wi-Fi connection. But most of the time, they usually just have like a little micro SD card or something simple in there that they can just pull off of it. And now it's got all that data stored on the chip, but they still have to take it off. And if, you pull it off and actually, call the cops right then and there, you actually have like video camera of you actually doing it in the store. Chances are you probably do. Yeah, now they can actually do a proper investigation because you never left with it. It was never left with the person that's behind the counter. Now it kind of helps, you and other people out a little bit, and you've kind of stopped it. So it's nothing really wrong just grabbing the little bottom lip of it right there where the credit card kind of inserts into it and kind of lifting up a little bit and seeing if you start hearing like Velcro or tape or something like that, or you feel like some weird like plastic edge that doesn't feel like it's flush with the rest of it. And just kind of like feel around it if you want to. I also recommend, like having $20-$40 cash on you just in case you have to like stop at those places, and you can just hand them the cash and be done with it. And that way you don't have to do it. That's one of my biggest like travel things I do is usually take $100 out in cash in case I have to stop somewhere along the road and just get gas or get drinks or get food or something like that, and just hand them that and don't have to worry about giving them any other type of information. Of course, if it's after hours and you have to stop at the gas pump because they're closed, but you can still get gas, that one's a different, kind of situation. But I would still recommend a credit card over a debit card because unless things have changed, there's a better chances of doing a charge back on a credit card than it is on a debit card. Rodney might be a little bit more of the professional to ask in that.
I don't know
Oh,
about I don't know enough about it.
okay, gotcha. But yeah, let's go ahead and get back on track here, and let me see. Thought that. Oh, okay, there we go. Finally did. Okay, so here is a website called Hooligan Keys, in which you can actually buy these key sets off of eBay, Amazon, this website, and about 6 others, as well as some locksmithing websites as well sells them. And if you look at some of the variations that they had here, I know my slide kind of cuts off a little bit. The top left one right there has like an elevator key, cabinet keys, a Ford Fleet key, which is typically the one that you would see for like New York cabbies driving Crown Vics, or, the old police cars too. Some police stations still have those. A lot of them have gotten wise to this, and they've had, locksmiths kind of rekey them so that they don't actually have that default key to it. Another, and that FEOK1 key, those are elevator keys. So if you ever notice where it actually says, like the firefighters come in, they turn that on so they can help people in the building in case of emergency. Those are all key to like too. So you can literally for $15 buy one of those keys. And let's see here, the construction core keys. If you've ever looked at like a big org that has a lot of buildings and a lot of different keys and key subsystems, like Grandmaster, Master, and department and individual key set. Construction core keys are used when they're renovating or building buildings, and you might walk up to them and you'll see the where the lock is, where you insert the key, and it might be painted green, blue, purple, red, or some other variation of color. All those are sold to construction companies so that they can key them alike, and they come with the keys automatically. All of that's really well-known stuff. You're supposed to remove those after the building is done, and then that way you don't have the risk of somebody using a key they can buy for, and that's a whole set of them for $80, which I think is like 10 or 12 keys. You don't have somebody that can literally buy a key for $5 or $10 and just walk straight into the building, and even though those are really exceptionally good keys and you can't pick them. I mean, my teacher even said, rather throw a rock through the window than actually try and pick that, because you're going to be sitting there trying to pick it potentially for a week. It's really difficult to do. But that one, yeah, you're not even going to look suspicious. You'll just look like you're supposed to be there with the key in hand. So definitely something to look out for, especially if you have a organization that's actually doing renovation to several buildings and you do have the Best or Falcon brand keys. And just as kind of a point here, the data breaches over the year, like the biggest one in the past 10 years has been Yahoo with 3.5 billion accounts stolen. And then there's several others here on the list, First American Financial Corp, LinkedIn got breached not long ago, and that one's still used in a lot of engagements. So if I'm trying to pen test a company and see how I can get in, the first thing I'm going to do is go back to data breaches like this one, and you can get them because they're public information now. Parse it for your email address, see what your passwords were or are, and just try to throw everything at the wall and see if it sticks. And then if I can, then I can get into your work computer, work email address, work VPN, whatever, and that gives me access into the inside. And that's a lot of times how attackers will move from the outside to the inside of an organization when they're trying to attack it and leverage it for ransomware or, you know, blackmail, anything to that degree. And that will probably become more and more common until we eventually get some laws around, or more constraints around, how data and information should be properly handled. And as a thought exercise, which is some kind of results to the other one as well. How many devices do you have in your life that actually have these key type of issues? And how many accounts do you have that have all the same password, similar password? And I do have a solution for the password issue, because I know remembering or making a good password that's, you know, alphanumeric, 12, 14 characters long, it has symbols in it. That's really, I know there are people that can do it, and there's little tricks you can use to try and make it easier for you, but that's really hard to actually do for a human being, and way easier for a computer to just remember some random sequence that doesn't have words. Some of the tricks that you can use in lieu of randomly generating one is use what's called a passphrase instead of a password. Password is just usually one singular word, so people will usually pick names, dates, something that's related to their life and what they know. What you can do with a passphrase is, you know, I like dogs. And in between it, you're putting numbers, you're putting symbols, something like that, to where it's actually a sentence rather than actually just a word. And that tremendously helps your odds of somebody trying to break in. And if you can do a different one for every account, then that's all the better. But there are free solutions to mitigate this issue. And sorry, the transition. And if you want to do another breakout room for a couple minutes, because we're going to 11, right, Rodney?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I've got like 4 more slides after this. Do you want me to go through this before we go to the breakout room, or go to the breakout room now?
Sure. Yeah, let's roll through the slides and then we can go to breakout.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so couple of
Bob, you got
suggestions.
does Bob have a question?
Sorry.
Yes, a couple of them.
Sure.
Just thoughts. Does anybody save their credit cards on an app? Sometimes you go in and say, do you want to save this credit card? That's a question. What about on your phone, staying signed into an app? And I think Jeff Bentley just asked me, what about push button start on cars? So those are 3 things: saving a credit card on a site, whether it's on your PC or on your phone, leaving your phone signed in, and of course you can mitigate that with access and Face ID and stuff like that, and the push button start on cars.
So the first one, I would recommend not saving your payment information anywhere in the browser, the phone, anything like that. Particularly, most of the time, it's usually saved in the browser. And literally with a couple lines of code and a USB drive, I can go up to a computer, plug the USB drive into it, dump everything that's out of the browser, including browser history, passwords, credit cards, and everything like that, with less than 60 seconds of access, and just walk away with all of it. So don't really save anything on your computer or browser. Phone is more or less doing it the same way. It's saving it in the browser itself. It's not necessarily saving it in other areas.
Does an app like DuckDuckGo help that? Because there's a little icon on DuckDuckGo where you can flame out anything that's inside the browser as you close it. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I'm not super familiar with that exact one. If it's deleting all contents of it so it's not remembering it for next time, then perhaps that would be okay. If it's just masking it, or it's covering it up as it's entered and stuff, I can literally hit F12 on a keyboard and tell it to unmask that, and now it just unhides it, and I can see it directly immediately without the dots or stars that's over top of it. So that's not really security when they do that. It's more or less just slight concealment, not necessarily.
On DuckDuckGo, it rips me out of every site I'm on. It's just gone. I have to sign in again.
Okay, so yeah, basically that's dumping like the cookies, the browser history, and everything out of it. So that wouldn't be too terrible of an option. That's definitely a way better option than saving everything in Google Chrome or saving everything in Safari or saving everything in Firefox, because all three of those can be exploited and you can just exfiltrate every single bit of data off of those very, very quickly. So as long as that's not actually saved in that one. And the car issue, because I forgot that one real quick, but the car issue with the push to start and the fob, like you have to have the fob nearby the car to actually do the push to start. The vulnerability with that one and how people are doing car thefts is that fob is constantly sending a signal back and forth between the car and the fob and the fob and the car, even if it's not being started. So it's kind of pinging it to tell where it's at. If you just get like a huge roll of wire and a little bit of it or a small adapter to plug into a computer, you can intercept those signals, and literally you'll just see people like stand outside your house with a huge roll of wire in a circle, and they're picking up the signals as they go between it. And as soon as they pick that up, they can just do what's a relay attack and just start the car and drive off with it. So the resolution that you can do to that one is stopping the pinging back and forth so people outside your home can't actually pick that up, which you can do with a Faraday bag, and they cost about 20-30 bucks on Amazon. And all that does is just stops the RF transmission between the key fob and the car. You basically just put it in there at night, or when you're not using the car, it can't receive the signal out to the car, so nobody can pick that up. You can put it in like a metal safe. Like think of it kind of like if there's an area where it's really hard to get a signal out of. Like if you've ever tried to get a cell phone signal in an elevator, like the signal is just really shot to pieces. So anything that's going to shorten or dampen or completely eliminate the signal between the key fob and the car will prevent them from actually being able to do a relay attack and steal the car.
As a miser, aluminum foil.
If it's got enough layers, and I think it used to be for like older cell phones when I was younger, because I used to love looking up really weird esoteric stuff. You could put like 6 or 8, somewhere between that kind of thing around your cell phone, and it would just kill the signal to the cell phone. So it worked like an improvised Faraday cage. So there is a level at which you can actually do that. And I guess you could just keep rapping and press the button until eventually it doesn't work anymore. And that kind of confirms your thoughts of, okay, now the signal is dead. So now I know it's, like 20 raps around it rather than 12.
Hmm.
And there was one other question you had asked, Bob. What was it?
I asked about, I think, leaving an app signed in on your phone, or maybe it was
Yes.
Face ID on your phone, etc.
Yes. So the leaving an app and open on your phone, that's where a stolen cookie attack works. So if what's keeping you signed in is called a cookie, and a cookie is basically a short-term certificate saying, okay, you've got a day pass to access or X number of time. And that's kind of how that part works. So if it's pulling from that cookie to kind of keep you signed in, if somebody else gets that cookie and then they can get what information your phone is, like it's a iPhone, 13, and a couple other details, they can kind of craft an attack to where it tricks the system into thinking that that's you on another device that is pretending to be your phone, and that can actually kind of work against you. How that typically happens is you'll click on a link or you'll click on a file, like a PDF, a Word document, something like that, and it's running a macro in the background, grabbing the cookie and then grabbing the extra data that it needs to authenticate and trick the system into thinking that's you, and it sends it back to the attacker, and then they can go ahead and go with it. That is the premise for the CIA tool called Pegasus, where they were able to actually hack into a lot of people's phones and tablets and go from there. And think that was released in 2017, 2018 when they found, or that tool became public. So that was one of the attacks that they had actually done with it. Oh, sorry, I accidentally pressed the button.
Just real quick, because we are running a little bit short on time. And I want to make sure. Go ahead, Marite.
Yes, so AT&T had a huge data leak, and they got phone number, emails, and social security number. So since they have the social security number, they can access a lot of things. They have the phone number. Can they use the phone number to intercept the code that you need for double authentication, or are we safe because we have the phone?
So they wouldn't be able to intercept the code. What they have to do with that one is called SIM cloning, which has became a lot more difficult. So what the SIM card that goes into your phone, that if you break your phone or get a new phone, you swap it to the new one and then you just keep going. So that's how you're able to intercept that code, was called SIM cloning. And you could just, either call up AT&T or Verizon and go, hey, I need to swap this over, craft some lie and story and get them to actually push it through. And then they would clone your SIM. Anymore, most carriers, particularly big ones, AT&T, Verizon, and a lot of other ones have made that really almost impossible for people to actually pull that off, because only specific people in the company now have the ability to clone a SIM or swap a SIM on it. So you basically have to jump through so many hoops that most are not going to try it unless they find another way around it, which is where they started using bribes for people that work inside the company. So they would just give them like $500 or $1,000 or something like that to swap the SIM on it, and now they can intercept your text messages and get into the account. Not super common.
I hate to cut you off, man, but let's wrap up with this. First of all, guys, give it up for Wes, because man, this is some important information that we all need to pay attention to, right? I would encourage all you guys, jump on a call with him one-on-one. He's willing to answer your questions. He said that at the beginning of the call. Wes, can you throw your contact information back up there?
Sure thing.
So we've got that. The last slide, I think, has it, right? If you can just jump to the last slide.
Oh, yeah. And
then,
if everybody wants to take a picture or screenshot of that.
So there's only one slide that he didn't share, and I can screenshot that and send it out to you guys so you have it. And that's really has to do with the password security, or there are two slides: password security, and then the bonus payment systems, which a lot of he's already spoke to throughout the hour, guys. So I'll share that, and you'll be like, oh yeah, he did mention that. Oh yeah, he did mention that. So those will be good reminders for you. Again, just connect with him one-on-one. I think you're going to get a lot more out of it, having your questions answered or your concerns addressed on a one-on-one basis. Wes, I really appreciate you coming in today and just sharing with us your wisdom and your knowledge. Real quick, we've got